Hello and welcome to SKTV News. You're watching yet another episode of the Manipur Files. And in today's episode, we're going to look back on the date that will be etched in our memories for a very, very long time, May 3rd, 2023. Now it's been officially a year that that Manipur has been in this crisis. And today we're going to look back and see how it all began, what's the way forward. We're going to go deep dive into it, and to help me with this, we're joined by distinguished panelists on our show. Let me introduce you to our guests without further ado. Author, columnist and Northeast region scholar, RAMI NIRANJAN Desai. RAMI, thank you so much for your time. Kurumjare RAMI. Also in our studio in Imphal is JAGAT THOUDAM. JAGAT is an advisor at Indigenous People's Front of Manipur. JAGAT, welcome.
Thank you.
Also welcome N. SATYAJEET. SATYAJEET is a bureau chief for United News of India. SATYAJEET, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's kickstart this show with you, Rami. Recently, I also happened to read your article that the latest article that you posted on First Post. For our viewers, we're going to share the link on our YouTube comments. You can check that out. In that, before we look back at this 1 year, Rami, in your article, I picked a few important things. First of all, drug trade in the Northeast region has become known to India due to Manipur crisis. That's one of the important things I picked up. And of course, every experts across the nation are talking about drug trade, the narco-terrorism and all that that would have given a push to this crisis. So how do you look back at this 1 year, Rami?
Priya, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It really is a privilege for me. And also thank you for reading my article. One of the things that I did write in my article is that let us be clear that this is only one of the factors. This is not, and this is not the entire gamut of factors that were involved in this unfortunate event happening. Therefore, I've said that, we don't count May 3 really as the beginning of the conflict. Roughly, it was a trigger point, but, anxieties and uneasiness had been preceding the May 3rd incident. Right. So we have to be very clear about these facts before we continue further. When I said that, the world knows about, problem of drugs in the Northeast because of what has conspired in Manipur. The reason again that I said this is that there has been a war on drugs, and this is not new. It was a concerted effort and a policy decision that was taken in 2017. The Home Minister himself had held a Chief Minister's meeting, if you remember, yes, wherein there was a four-pronged strategy that was laid out to tackle the problem. Merely because this was a problem that was not just impacting Manipur, but other states as well. And since then, there has been some of the biggest falls of drugs that have been caught on multiple different borders, whether it's Assam, whether it's Mizoram, whether it's Manipur. So for people to say that, drugs was not the problem, poppy cultivation was not the problem, is obfuscating the truth. This was one of the factors. This has been an underlying anxiety. And if it has not been, then I think we have a serious problem in civil society, wherein we know what the consequences of this drug peddling is. It's not just using these areas as routes, but also the consumption of drugs within these societies, should be a civil society problem. So to obfuscate this factor does not benefit anybody. To say that poppy cultivation does not exist does not benefit anybody. So I don't know why this argument keeps coming over and over again. But, just to cut my answer short so that you can, go on to the others also, because this is such a big topic. Absolutely. I'd like to also say that, this kind of narrative that has been built, obviously has been built very sort of strategically. This is not something that was a reaction to the conflict. This was something that was possibly, planned out. So we have to look at this whole conflict as a gamut of problems. We have to accept what the factors were. Otherwise, there's no point discussing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. You make a valid point, Rami. In fact, let me get to Tamu Satyajit. Tamu, picking from where Rami left off, obviously, if you have time, please go through her article. She's
Yes, I have gone through it. I have gone.
Yes, so your opinion, first of all.
Yes, I have gone through Rami's article. It was a very well written article, very well documented, and we have seen a new opening.
Right.
So coming to the main issue, that is the crisis which happened in Manipur. Number one, I think what we should do is how should we resolve the matter.
Right.
For example, to resolve a matter, to resolve a crisis, we have to understand what are the root causes: the economic, the social, the political. After understanding all the root causes, over here, what exactly happened in May 3, 2023 last year, about almost we have completed 1 year.
Yes.
We have to see that there, except next to the political, economic and political, we have another dimension.
Right.
That is drug, the poppy plantation.
Correct.
Those are new. Then the most important aspect is militancy also.
Right.
So all those issues came forward and it bulldozed the entire system of Manipur. Over here, what I want to say is that Manipur is quite different from other states.
Right.
For instance, this is just like a solar system. We have the sun, we have the solar system, the 8 planets. Just like we can say that the Manipur Valley provides the rice, where the hills provide the water, the vegetables. So it is everything is interlinked, socially, politically, everything is interlinked. We depend on each other. And the other issue which rose from May 3rd is, for instance, prior to this, for example, the Meiteis. We say, for example, the observation on May 3rd, there were so many observations
Correct.
in Manipur. And for instance, as a journalist, I mean, I was in a trauma. Which function I had to attend because the overall dozen functions.
Right.
It shows that the mentality of people, then the mentality of the organizations, they are not united also. That is a main crux also. So I think this is a time which we look forward, and this is the perfect time when we should try to understand what are the root causes
Right.
and find the solution.
Right. So we will need to dive into the root causes, says Tamu Satyajit. Jagat, just drawing our attention to what has been, the narrative, like Rami mentioned earlier. Initially, when it all started, people thought it was, Kuki versus Meitei, where across, not just in India but even on international forums, it was made to look like it was a crisis, a fight between say Christians and Hindus, right? Even no lesser than the, union ministers had to differ from their statement, saying that it's because of the High Court thing and stuff. So all those later on, the Union Home Minister himself on the floor of the House in Parliament and the Chief Minister of Manipur himself made it very clear that there are external forces involved. Right. So those statements have already been made, but are enough actions done on the ground? What's your opinion?
Just before
Sure.
answering the questions, let me first express that I'm very sad about what has happened here so far.
Sure.
And for all the victims of this so-called crisis, I feel sorry for all those things. But before that, I would like to, the Satyajit has pointed one very relevant question,
Right.
relevant one. He has said that he was in a dilemma where to attend the function.
Right.
That I had pointed out also earlier, that Meitei society is too democratic. So don't brand any classes. There is no question of any ethnic class or communal class.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing like, you cannot brand the whole Meitei community as something. This I said, you have also experienced that, right? That's what I emphasize.
Right.
I also stand by that, right? So this is something which I want to convey to the, the whole society. I have tried also before,
Right.
right? This is one. I'm very thankful to you for starting this one. But when we talk about this anniversary debate, I defer that. I think I take it not as a conflict or any, but I take it as a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
If you can tell me why I conspiracy, I can look back at it. Conspiracy for what? That is another issue. Let us look back at the 2015, what happened in the
Right. Yes.
More.
Yes.
If you can display anything what happened in 2015 in More, on the August 18, there was a rally for the implementation of the ILP.
Right.
Right, a peaceful rally. Right, it was disturbed by stone pelting, and then the crowd, mostly consisting of the Kuki, from the Kuki community. Right. Wonder why in the whole of the Northeast, people, tribals are demanding the ILP. Every tribal, Meghalaya is now demanding inner line permit. Right. So it was very astonishing, you know, to this one, to know that the demand for the ILP was disturbed, and after that the buildings of the More Meitei Council, right, was ransacked. If you can have the photos, you can just show me this if you
we'll try and get it.
That is the thing. Then the properties of the Meiteis were vandalized,
right,
but the police did not come to the rescue, or police did not come to stop the mobs of police. Why? Because that time the commando complex in More was locked under the instructions of a Kuki officer. It was a IGP rank.
Right.
The same pattern of conspiracy can be seen, in various stages. I can trace you if you can show me those photographs. One of the conspiracy, this same pattern you can also see is about the 2019 October. There was a hue and cry about the grabbing of the tribal land by the Manipur government.
Right.
Yet one village was there it was Harautal. But Harautal is a name originally given to the, that place. But it has now been changed to one called El Thangnuan village. I happened to witness one page, Facebook page, Twitter page under the name. So the villagers, claim the land as their own.
Right.
But it happened that when you look at the Google map, it happened that villages were established only in 1992. How can a village which was established in 1992 claim a land which was lying much far away from that village land?
Right.
How could they do that? Because armed insurgents or armed groups were there behind them. Right. See, this conspiracy, even to that extent, 2005 or so-called this suspension operation is also a part of the conspiracy. I would like to liken it to like in the Mumbai Dawood gang and the Mumbai police. They are saying that let's not kill each other, let's not shoot each other. And after some time, the Dawood gang get matured. They recruited many people. Then they started attacking the Mumbaites. That same thing is that. What is the foundation for this coup? There's no foundation for that. There's no legitimate foundation for that.
Right.
So I would say first thing is that this is a conspiracy. It's not an anniversary.
Right.
The first of the conspiracy was shown or witnessed on 2015,
right.
August 18. The same pattern continued all along.
Right.
And this is May 3rd is only part of it.
Right. So it's a pattern, says Oja Jagat, Rami, and I bring the same questions to you. First of all, out of 5 non-Manipuris that I've seen across national debates, Rami Desai is one of those distinguished guests. When the crisis initially started, sometime in May, June, we saw Rami getting onto national media, telling the mainstream media what the fact is. When there are people who are misrepresenting the facts, Rami Desai was one of those few people who presented the facts. So getting to you, Rami. Like I mentioned earlier, the Home Minister, the Chief Minister have accepted there are external forces involved. However, do you think that there are enough actions on the ground? Have enough actions been taken when there are such bold statements coming out from the top level?
Number one, I'd like to say that your commentary of me coming in during this conflict and speaking is absolutely overwhelming to me. So thank you. I never looked at it like that. The fact of the matter was that there was a misrepresentation of what was happening on ground. There was a vilification of one community over the other. There was a lack of understanding of the complex issues. It's not easy for somebody like me who is a field worker, who's a researcher, to take a stand on situations like this, because now there are areas that I possibly will not feel safe going to for my field research, But this was a fact, and I think, it was important for people who had any amount of knowledge about the state to get out there and risk whatever they had to risk, to bring the truth out. I also would like to say that both my co-panelists have made really pertinent points. This is exactly the kind of debates that we should have had even then, wherein, these were facts, data, dates that were being put forth. Unfortunately, what happened is everything went into a hyperbole. Anybody who tried to speak any sense, and it's happened with me, and I'm sorry, I'll come to your question in just a second, but I want to say this on television, that, what happens even in debates is that, many a times you see people trying to shift from what the point is, what the data point is, what the reference point is, and taking on another point altogether. So, for example, if I say that there are illegal immigrants in the state, the opposition will say, oh, so you're calling the entire community illegal immigrants, So this sort of nonsensical conversations, must, people have to reflect on themselves as to who is it helping, because you're exposing yourself on national television. And this is what kept happening over and over again, confusing the rest of the country. Now, that is one confusion. That is a perceptual confusion to a layman who's trying to understand what is happening in my country. And that is a very dangerous thing, because you are also kind of splitting the rest of the country within opinions. And as we have seen, you're also splitting international understanding of the situation into opinions, So this is a very dangerous sort of a game to play. But coming to your question of, has enough been done on ground? I think it's evident to all of us, and I'll be completely dishonest in saying that mistakes haven't been made. I think there's a question of quicker response. There's a question of, some amount of intelligence failure. There's a question of, like Sir said, my previous panelist very correctly said, the question of Sue. What sort of an agreement is that? To begin with, what sort of an agreement is that to come to? And now that we know what the repercussions of it can be, how easily it can be violated. And mind you, it was being violated way before this situation started. There was recruitment, there were other problems that was happening, So if this was happening, of course, we should have taken it, more seriously, or action must have been taken. But that doesn't mean that, everything was a failure. We have to stop having extreme opinions and somehow try to take, the best of both sides and, have a balanced opinion as much as we can in a situation like this. And it's not easy. Sometimes what happens is, when situations like this happen, the victim is very far away. So we can only empathize in terms of a data point. But really, what have people gone through, like those two kids who, were kidnapped, how are their families ever going to recover, So the humanization of these stories over and over again is also really important for us to ensure that it doesn't happen again. But apart from that, for example, suspension of FMR. Now there's concerted attention on the border, not just for Manipur, but for other states as well. I don't think people understand when they say border fencing. I don't think they really understand what it means, border fencing is, it has multiple layers, it's not just going to be one wooden border on, 1643 kilometers. No, it's going to have high tech, it's going to have a custom point, it's going to have, it's going to be an integrated system. It's going to have extra patrolling in the areas that are known, in the routes that are known for this sort of trafficking, So I think that renewed, out of this horrendously awful situation, this renewed interest in these aspects, especially our security aspects, has been very important. I think the other thing that has come out is when the Home Minister before the elections came to Imphal and said that, there is going to be no territorial change.
Absolutely.
I think that message has we have to be able to take that message very seriously. And I think all stakeholders must accept that that is now the reference point. Now you want to start a dialogue, you start that dialogue from there. There's going to be no two ways about it. So I think there have been some problems, but I think there have been, other answers that have come out of this. And if we can ensure implementation, if we can ensure further clarity on our roadmap, something good can come out of this situation.
Right. Yes, please.
Yes, Ramiji, when I say conspiracy, you also can see that let's not look only in the context of Manipur. Why it happened just a few months or some before the elections? That's also very important. See, I also understand how much BJP had tried to, contain the damage because of the propaganda that BJP is anti-tribal, right? BJP is anti-Christian. Because the whole propaganda or whatever is the message given, what was that? It was the non-tribals, right, against the tribals, and non-Christians, right, victimizing the tribals. That's what. And to that extent that the BJP MPs were not allowed to speak in the parliament. And they are being now, here they are being hounded by the public. Let's not look only in the context of Manipur, Ramiji. This was a whole on the, the context was used, conspiracy was there from the very beginning. We have to look in the background. I can see the pattern because of my experience in the, through this, various social activities, since the 1993, 94 and the participation, I can see the pattern. So let us, I also request, it is a very much a challenge even to the national level.
Right.
This was there.
National threat, it's a national
yes,
threat.
It's a national threat. In the long term, it is going to be a national threat.
Right. I think
it's not, that is something which we have to. Why, Ramiji, why I tell you one thing which I felt very bad. In 2004 also, I had met the one officer, senior officer from the Home Ministry. And he was coming with this Tarun Deka, which is the IB. He was a junior at that time.
Okay.
That time there was an Armed Forces Special Power Act, that agitation was there, Kangla transfer and all was there. That time also I told you, Manipur as a kingdom has contributed a lot to the national integration.
Right.
This contribution today it seems that the various institutions of India is betraying the Manipur. Manipur represented by that time by the Maharaja. This is what I tell you. Every time the government of India and its institutions, I'm not talking about any government particularly, they are working, thinking the counter-insurgency, taking as a yardstick. I told them that time also, don't take any policy decisions based on the insurgency alone.
Right.
This is something which, and Ramiji, which for your please 1 minute, let me complete
sure.
that. What we have to, I look back in 1834, when Cabo Valley was transferred or given on lease to the Awa or the Burmese by the British colonists. Why was it? Dual. If you have I have shared PRIYOBARTA all the documents
sure.
and the facts. I am not basing whatever for the More also. I have given you the documents. I have given the facts also.
Yes. I think Oja Jagat raised some valid points also. And Rami, yes, quick response, Rami. Rami, can you hear us? Okay, we'll get back to Rami. Yes. SATYAJEET, I know Oja Jagat has raised some valid points. Oja Jagat is categorically mentioning the pattern that we've observed. Anyways, we'll come to that. We'll get Rami's reaction. Now, as late as last afternoon, as part of Media Fraternity, I'm sure you've heard this, and I want to know your reaction on this. The Chief Minister has made it very clear that the youth did not pick up arms to attack the government. They picked up arms to defend themselves against the infiltrators. Once the situation calms down, both from hill and valley, the arms will be taken back. And also, CM mentioned another valid point, saying poppy cultivation has reduced. Your reaction to that?
The issue is very complex. The Manipur issue is very complex. The issues involved are very complex.
Right.
Everything is very complex. What I would say is, when there is a crisis, there should be willpower to resolve it. How we resolve it?
Right.
One has to be the fire brigade approach. You give the first aid first, then you go for the, after doing the diagnosis, you do the proper thing. I think this is the time. The fire brigade approach has ended. Now this is a time when we deal with the real issues. Ramo has given the issues very explicitly. Rami has also given the issues very explicitly. The core issues, for example, when we want to talk with somebody, we have to be very careful who are the people. For instance, when we want to go for talks, when we go for diplomacy, when we want to go for diplomatic talks, political talks, whatever talks to resolve the crisis, we have to understand that, for example, there's a crisis. The conflict is between Kukis and the Meiteis. And the most important part is the third party. When two parties are involved, Tamo has pointed out that, for example, in some areas, when two parties are fighting,
right,
the third parties are very important. In Manipur, the Nagas are very important,
yes,
the Muslims are very important, and outside the intellectuals are very important. Tamo has said that the state machinery has not done much enough. In this aspect, though not related, I will come to that question. The immediate issues that we need to resolve are about the 60,000 people who have been displaced. For example, they cannot go back to their homes because their homes has been displaced. I think we need a huge budget. It has to, because we cannot do it. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources. The resources has to come from New Delhi. The people's money has to come, because we have to help the 60,000 people to go to their homes. That's the first issue. The next issue to resolve the crisis is to make the highways secure.
Right.
Unless, for instance, I have been traveling on the highways, I cannot move now.
Yes.
And now the third issue is the students. They should be able to go to the educational institutes without any problem.
Right.
Kuki, Naga, I think first we should touch hospitals. For example, those who are affected,
yes,
those who are injured,
yes,
they should have free access to the hospitals.
Right.
I think this should be the first step. The third issue is the airport. I think everybody should have access, whether Kukis or Meiteis, they should have free access to the airport. And coming to the issue which you have raised,
yes,
for example, what we are facing is unprecedented. India has never experienced such a crisis before.
Right.
For such a long time. Manipur has experienced this. Kuki-Naga conflict, it was very localized.
Yes.
For instance, as a young journalist, I was traveling I was covering the Kuki-Naga conflict. But I found that in Ukhrul, there were lots of, for example, Litan. Then if you go to Kamjong, Sassad, you'll find lots of Kuki villages. Kuki, they are not affected. But over here, the issue is everyone is affected now. I mean, so this crisis is different from those which happened earlier. And the most important aspect is what the Meiteis, for example, we are Meiteis. I'm not trying to be biased, but I have to be very clear about what exactly happened. For example, we had been attacked. For instance, when the 2015 incident, which Amos was referring, it was quite violent. Then there were lots of incidents, for example, Kampokpi, More, when there is a movement to help the indigenous people, there have been lots of protests going on. So there have been violent protests. But when the May 3rd happened, we have to understand that there were people who were toting guns, who were displaying guns openly. And so after that, the crisis started. And when they attack people, I mean, naturally, when somebody attack you, you have to defend yourself. So people, especially the Meitei, they had no weapons because no one was on suspension or operation. For example, for the Kukis, most of them were held by the militants, were in suspension. They had arms, sophisticated arms, and I don't know from where they came. But for us, we had nothing. So whatever resources we had to do it, we have to defend it. Right. And for this, the Chief Minister he gave the perfect reply, right, and he's correct in one sense also, because we have to defend ourselves. And in the other trend is, you must have noticed that there was no crisis at all for a very long time.
Yes.
The crisis started only when there were attacks from the hill areas.
Right.
The Chief Minister has pointed out that there are about 34 places where the attacks are going on, because the Imphal Valley is surrounded about 34 hotspot areas where Kuki militants are standing. So what the other security measures which I want to suggest is, for instance, the Chief Minister said, the Security Advisor said that about 45,000 to 60,000 troops came after the crisis. So what we suggest is, we have 9 ranges of hills. In the first range, the fighting is taking place from the first range. That is, we can see it. For example, I have seen some places.
Yes.
We can see the places from where the firings are taking place, just 1-2 kilometers.
Right.
So what we suggest is, in the 34 places, if we sanitize it, if free from all militancy, I mean, we will be moving forward to solving the crisis. That's the.
I'll take your in your concluding remarks. I'll take more feedback from you as well, Tamo. Just one last thing. I think Rami is back on. Rami, we lost you for a while. You wanted to respond. Yeah, I'll come back to you again, Tamo.
My previous panelist said something about a conspiracy and about political parties. Let me be very clear. I never said that it wasn't a conspiracy in the larger sense that the militancy, the kind of prolonged ethnic sort of disturbances has been a historical problem in these states. And it's just not Manipur. Number 2, I also think it is very, very important to realize that the country realizes that this is a national security issue. If the country did not realize that this is not a national security issue, the Home Minister would not have made such an important statement like there will be no change to territorial integrity of Manipur. I would beg to differ from you, sir, to say that that is not an important statement, or that is not a statement that sends a very strong message, and it's a message that everybody needed to hear who was hoping for a change in the territorial integrity of the state, which the Meiteis themselves would not accept. Number 3, sir, I'd also like to say that I don't comment on internal politics because I don't vote in Manipur. So whatever happens within the periphery of Manipur, whether you like the party, you don't like the party, I think the results will tell you who has been favored and who hasn't been favored. But here is what I think as an analyst, sir. I think that as an analyst, no conflict, if it was to happen for the benefit of the elections, would happen a year in advance. It would happen 2 months in advance. Even election strategy campaigning never starts a year in advance. It starts a couple of months in advance. So by October, we all noticed the rate of incidents also tapering down. So I don't know how this has benefited this party in terms of the fact that one of the most compromised candidates probably at this point, or the most challenged candidates within the state at this point, was the BJP candidate. That's what they kept saying, that, oh, this is going to be challenging, this is going to be a tough fight. So I don't think this has helped actually, the incumbent, So this is my limited response to what you were saying, sir, about this being a conspiracy, but make no doubts about the fact that everybody realizes that this is a national security problem. That's why the FMR has been revoked, and many other such, other policy changes are set to happen post the elections. As for the other panelists, Satyajeet ji said something about the IDPs. I think this is a very, very important point. I have visited the Kuki refugee camps. I have met the children there. I have spent time and taken relief material. I have been to the Meitei relief camps and done the same. And it is sad that, I realized, and, when I went into the hill areas, I did see where the homes would have been, in the interiors. There isn't even the boundary of the house, the foundational boundary of the house that has been left. There is a complete erasure of anybody having lived there. So when they go back, and I wish they do, but when they go back, where do they go back to? There is no house. Who is going to claim this land, whilst they are not there? This is another problem. We've seen this happen in Jammu and Kashmir for a far longer time, and we know through history and experience that it is very difficult unless communities get involved and make people feel safer for IDPs to go back to their own homes, especially if there are no homes there. Your neighbors are still from the other community, either or, so these are very difficult discussions, but these discussions must be had in depth. I would say the question of IDP should be a debate by itself, because A, where are they going to go back? Are those pieces of land still going to belong to them? Are their neighbors going to welcome them? Is there going to be long-term safety for them? This other point that I'm going to make is something that I observe myself, is that, a lot of the children, a lot of the women are suffering from post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
This is going to have a long-term effect on our children. Do you think little kids who've seen, this kind of conflict? I spoke to one person who said that his child was in school, his wife was somewhere buying food when this group of people came to attack their home. So he got into his car and he started looking for them. Can you imagine what the child must have felt, not knowing what's happening, why are these people attacking them? This kind of post-traumatic stress disorder is going to have long-term repercussions, not just on the individual themselves, but on their interrelationship with the other community. So these are very long-term initiatives that we have to take, and I think the importance herein lies. We have this habit of saying the government should fix everything. Of course, the government should be accountable. But in a state which has the amount of CSOs that Manipur does, that has the amount of groups of people that Manipur does, and suddenly after the conflict, the amount of, further groups that have been created, have to get on the road and start addressing these issues.
Absolutely, it's going to be a Herculean task, like Rami rightly mentioned, for the authority as well. Like Rami rightly put forward, there are no boundaries. The houses have been bulldozed, so there's no proof that houses existed there. Apart from that, also Rami just getting
Yes. If these people are not, at some point soon enough, if this kind of rehabilitation doesn't happen, if they don't get to go back to their own homes, and I mean both the communities, this is going to then be cemented.
Right.
And that's, this is like, you remember what happened with the Kashmiri Pandits, they still cannot go back, even though there is all sorts of safety and security. That's not the situation that we can allow happening in Manipur.
Yes. Just in case I lose you again, Rami, I just want to, bring few more important points from the article, from your latest article, where you, mentioned that, like you rightly mentioned about the Herculean tasks for the authority. You also mentioned there are few hurdles to bringing peace in the process. For example, impact of poppy cultivation and illegal immigrants. You mention of increase in supply of illegal weapons. Can you please elaborate a little more for our viewers, please?
I meant by saying illegal immigrants that, people coming from across the border. Obviously there has been identification of suddenly, hundreds of villages that have cropped up. A lot of them have cropped up on forest land. The forest land is national land. How has this happened? Why did the identification of these illegal immigrants create such a furor? Why are there people, and I won't say an entire community, but people within a community still justifying the fact that, these are not illegal immigrants, these are refugees. Yes. Refugees don't come into other lands and indulge in illegal activities nowhere in the world. You try to go to America and do that, well, maybe nowadays America might be a bad example, but you try to go into any other country and do that. Would you be able to go into the Middle East and indulge in illegal activity? What the result would be? Yes. So who are we, to allow this to happen? And when we talk about national security, this is a national security problem. This is not just a state problem. So that is what I meant by illegal immigration being a long-term problem and being a hurdle. Yes. Because, we know what is happening across, whether it's the Chin region, whether it's the Saigon region, they're making drones in these areas. MR-10 drones, these are the kind of drones that advanced militaries across the world are using, and we find them across the border in Myanmar. There's a spillover effect of that conflict through these illegal immigrants as well. Sure, there might be some really genuine refugees, there might be some women and children, who've been adversely impacted by this. But then there has to be provisions made for not just their identification, but their tracking as to what they have been doing or what they, intend to do in the country, because we have found that a lot of them have channeled their way to Delhi as well. Yes. Again, porous borders spell, they are problematic no matter where they are. But, the other hurdles are, like we're talking about, we know the nexus. I don't need to tell this to anybody in Manipur, about, the kind of weapons that are traded from the kind of money that is made from drug cultivation, the kind of consumption through intravenous means that, has an impact on the youth, whether it's HIV, whether it's just drug addiction, these are hurdles towards, again, recruitment, because these are the kind of people you will then recruit, to join forces. The other problem also is, arming civilians. We keep saying disarmament must happen, these weapons must come back. How is it going to come back? In a year, it's not been able to come back. It's not going to come back. I right at the outset used to say, communities must stand up because they know the people within their villages who have these arms. They must stand up and say that, look, we decide to disarm. But the trust deficit, number one, is so much. Number two, they don't need to procure the arms from anywhere. A lot of RPGs are being made in-house, are being made at home. So this disarmament process is going to be a very difficult process. Homing operations are not going to be sufficient. I think some amount of ground sort of, advocacy within groups. And also, these communities at some level coming together and saying, okay, these are problems that are not going to see what community we are from. It's going to impact all of us, is going to be very, very important.
Right.
So I think many hurdles that, solutions only through, bringing in the stakeholders and having very focused discussions. These are all separate problems. So in the same breath, we can't talk about disarmament wherein we talk about, IDPs and we talk about civil society. These are all separate arguments, separate solutions. We need to really have focused discussions on this.
Right, so Rami is, focusing on having focused discussions. Only for the want of time, Jagat, let me take your last comments before you respond to Rami. I just want to mention a few important things. First thing that we saw today, even SATYAJEET must be aware of it, that most of the newspapers today in Manipur carried out a big headline saying Prime Minister Modi made 162 trips across India, barring Manipur. Your comments on that, and will if you have any final thoughts, because we're running out of time.
See, now, I have to respond to one thing. When
Very
we talk
shortly,
about
please.
a conspiracy by the Cookie Joe militants, bureaucrat officers, right? Some politicians, that across the nation and the whole worldwide, that was a conspiracy. If we look at it as a class or conflict, it is different.
Got it.
Then solution, if you have to look at the conspiracy, somebody has to own up the responsibility.
Right.
Now, we didn't have enough time. We need more discussion on this.
Sure.
See, when we have the conspiracy, then he has some institutions that with the colonial legacy. The Home Minister Amit Shah has said when the IPC court was repealed, right? That the colonial legacy, or whatever the vestiges has removed, the colonial legacy vestiges has been still there in many of the institutions.
Right.
Yes, especially this, I would like to mention that Assam Rifles. Assam Rifles has been responsible for guarding the border as well as all the operations. Then are they not responsible? So are those the colonial legacies is hampering them? So when we look at it as a conspiracy, then the solutions will be different. And when you started looking as a fight between the two communities, that is, as I already mentioned, that it is not a conflict. It's not ethnic class. Already PRIYOBARTA has already, SATYAJEET already referred that. I also say that Meitei society is too democratic. Once you unravel this conspiracy, then everything will come into the picture. It will come to the fall. It's not that, but still the responsible persons are not ready to own up.
Take ownership.
This is the one thing.
Yes, take ownership is what
yes, take
ownership.
Ownership of this crisis.
Right.
The ownership of the crisis, whole of this Manipur history, look at it. Please look at from 1834, analyze it, till 1972.
Right.
Even in the 1972, how was the statehood given? With a saying.
Yes.
Then look at that. Then how these things have been involved.
Absolutely.
How this India government has viewed the community, Meitei community as a whole.
Right.
Why was the statehood given in 1972?
Yes.
Why the Nagaland with Huiskeda arm has been given a long time back, right? When was it? 1966, right?
Right.
So there are many various issues there. Number one, if you started as a conflict, If you think as a conflict or armed ethnic conflict, it is now never going to end.
Right.
Because you are not going to see the psyche of those people there.
Right.
Once you see the conspiracy, it is an aggression, then everything will come to the fall on responsibility. Whatever the armed groups or whatever the things, whatever the Ramiji is very much worried. Actually, I was worried about the arms, it will come. But I say that I am not talking about any particular government. Please, it says there's been continuation of the policy, British colonial policy,
Yes.
since 1834,
Will-
when this Kavo Valley was transferred to Awa
Right.
to contain this Meitei Manipur Maharaja.
Yes, Jagat, that's a
That
big-
is
yes.
why I said that on the responsibility.
True.
What
And-
are the colonial vestiges? Assam Rifle was created as a private militia of the East India Company.
True, Jagat.
Why should it remain still now?
That's a bigger debate
What
for
is the
another day.
function? Yes,
Sorry
yes,
to interrupt you.
yes,
Didn't mean to
yes.
interrupt you. Only for
Yes,
the want of time.
this is
I'll take-
Ramiji, I didn't mean to counter you anything.
Yes, just stating facts. I get your point. I'll take Tamo Satyajit's last comments. Tamo, how as part of being from the media fraternity, how do we look forward? And what your last opinion, please. Only for the want of time.
I think this is a time we know who is in charge of Manipur crisis, the entire crisis now. For example, the Prime Minister, as you said, hasn't come to Manipur.
Yes.
On the day of the crisis, the Vice President of India was in Manipur. The President of India hasn't come to Manipur. The Vice President hasn't come. Even though the Union Home Minister, he stayed for 3-4 days. But I think we have a constitutional crisis also. We don't know exactly who is in charge of the security affairs. Someone says it's with the security advisor. Someone says, what I want to say is, when there is a crisis, such crisis, people should know who is in charge. We should know who the father of the nation is. We should know who is in charge. So I think this is the perfect time. The government announces, the government owns the crisis and takes decisive action. Otherwise, I would say that
Yes.
we'll be facing the crisis for a very, very long time.
Thank you so much, Tamo Satyajit. We hear from all our panelists that we need to look forward. We need to, obviously it's going to be a Herculean task for the authority, but we need to keep working towards it. For God's sake, there are more than 60,000 people displaced. Childbirths at relief camps, natural deaths at relief camps, over 200 official figures dead in this violence. We only hope that peace returns soon. With that, we'll come to an end only for the want of time. Thank you so much, Rami, for giving us your precious time. Tamo Jagat and Tamo Satyajit, thank you so much for joining us.
Last word, everything happens on a policy framework.
We'll
You
leave it at
cannot
that.
ignore that.
Yes,
They are
we'll-
just the victims, everybody
Right.
empathizes on that.
Yes, we leave it.
Everybody, I said that I empathize with the cookies of victims.
Yes, we leave
I've
it
got
at
a very good friendship with them.
Yes, we leave it at that for now, and maybe
but-
in the next
but
discussion.
Yes, we have got a lot more to
Absolutely.
discuss, a
Absolutely.
lot more things.
I'll
Since you have pulled it out, everything I have given you the document.
I'll make some
you
more
have
time.
a discussion
Yes,
on
I'll
that.
make some more time.
I don't say without documents.
Yes, I'll make some more time for that maybe in the future. Thank you so much also viewers for joining us. That is all we have for today. We'll be back with more in the next episode. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.